Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin' Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. We've got quite a few things coming up today. First up on the show, we're going to be speaking with Linda Fisk, who is the founder of Seeds of Affinity and a Radio Seeds broadcaster. And she'll also be talking a little bit about the lived experience of prisons. And we'll be speaking with her shortly. Hopefully, we're going to be having Claire Seppings join us as well to speak with Linda as well. And Claire was also part of the Reintergration Puzzle conference in Sydney that happened recently. After that, we'll be speaking with John Dowd, who is the president of Community Justice Coalition, and we'll be speaking with him about the fact that the New South Wales Government has refused online counselling for prisoners in their cells, and in fact there are very, very few rehab programs in New South Wales as well, so it's extremely difficult for prisoners to heal. After that, we'll speak with Lucy Honan, Refugee Action Collective, and we'll speak with Lucy in regards to an event that's happening next Monday at Trades Hall, and it's called How Can We Break Bipartisan Support for Offshore Processing? And I'll give you the details later for that. But so in the meantime, I'm just going to go into a quick announcement and then we'll speak with Linda.
Want to support 3CR's diverse and independent voices? Well, it's not too late, and we still need your support. Donate now by calling 9419 8377 or donate online at www.3cr.org.au or post us a cheque or money order to Post Office Box 1277, Collingwood 3066.
And you're back with the Doin' Time show, and we've got Linda on the line, and we've also got Claire coming as well in here. Hello, Claire.
Hi, Marisa. Hi, Linda.
Are you there, Linda?
Hi, Claire.
It's so great to have you, Linda. You wouldn't believe it's been a crazy day, but finally we've all got everything organised.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's so lovely to have you, and I believe that Adelaide is half an hour behind all this ridiculous time change, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We are half an hour behind, definitely, yes.
Absolutely.
Maybe even a little bit more than half an hour in my view, but anyway.
Anyway, Claire, can you hear Linda?
I can.
Good. Linda, I introduced you as being the founder of Seeds of Affinity and a Radio Seeds broadcaster. Yes. And can you talk a little bit about that and also speak about, how you got into it?
Okay, yeah, I'm co-founder of Seeds of Affinity. I founded Seeds of Affinity with my last parole officer, who helped me a great deal when I was released the last time in 1994. What we found was in the 1980s and the 1990s, women continued to just go in and out of prison without really having any options in mainstream society. And after I'd finished my parole and got myself out of the criminal justice system, I maintained contact with her, and we talked on many, many different occasions trying to come up with an idea of how we could help women to sort of transition back into community. Eventually we got together, started very simply by having a shared lunch, and making toiletries together, making soap and moisturiser. That was in 2006, and then we became incorporated in 2011.
Wow.
And since then, we've really, really grown. The organisation has taken off. I'm in a really noisy place, and I'm really sorry. I've had a granddaughter, and I'm in the hospital.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Linda.
That's
great.
Really noisy. I'm going to visit her because she's in neonatal intensive care unit because she's 6 weeks early. She was supposed to be born weeks ahead, but yeah.
We're happy.
So I apologise for the noise.
No. Yeah, so we won't keep you very long. But in terms of the... So this is a radio program, is it, for women in prison?
Radio Seeds is the radio program. Seeds of Affinity is an organisation that seeks to... We have 3 different areas that we look at. We look at enterprise advocacy.
Lovely.
And also... the thing that I like to focus on most is the advocacy. The community really needs to understand the issues that face women and why they find themselves in prison and why they find it so difficult to extract themselves from the criminal justice system.
And what do you think are the most important things facing women?
In 2017, I think the most important things facing women, number 1 is housing upon release. Number 2 is lack of rehabilitation within the prison system, especially in South Australia. The prison system is completely overloaded. Employment and training is another issue, and family and children is another really big issue in South Australia. South Australia is the only state in the country where women's children are removed from them as soon as they're given birth. So if you're pregnant and you go to prison in South Australia, you'll give birth to your child in shackles, and then your child will be removed from you that day and is usually placed in foster care unless you have suitable people in your family to take the child. And I put suitable in inverted commas because that's always how if you're suitable deemed by the state, and that's their idea of suitable.
And did you witness any of those issues in prison, or did you have to support women in prison with any of those things?
Well, I've supported women with those issues. I've also suffered those issues myself. I gave birth to 2 sons inside Northfield Prison Complex, one in 1987, one in 1994. I, unlike some women, have the ability to advocate for myself and navigate the system. So I fought very strongly, and I was able to keep those children with me for a period of time. But some women don't have the ability to do that, and they need someone to be their voice and to walk alongside them and help them navigate what has become a really convoluted and complicated system and a much more punishing system, I think, in 2017.
Yeah. I agree, Linda. It's Claire here, and I was just listening to you then thinking that when we think of like the housing issue, education, employment, and around family and children, everyone knows that they're the universal factors that everybody needs to get on in life and to have in life. And then when you equate that, when you say too how, rehabilitation is failing, surely if we make those universal things a part of day one of rehabilitation, then surely that we've got to be able to decrease them being issues on release.
You would think so, and I think that's indicative of Minister Malinowski's announcement just a couple of days ago, I believe, that he's going to spend $40 million in the state of South Australia on rehabilitation and housing because things have become so dire.
Yep.
And it's a long overdue, and it's great to hear that that's going to happen, but I'm also always sceptical, and I'm always hopeful that money will get down to the people that need it, and that it doesn't get run off into the big care organisations, the big wraparound services that are really great at claiming for funding, but not so great on delivering services.
Yeah.
Don't hold your breath.
Absolutely. But also
I won't be.
It's so important, and that there's people like you, Linda, and Seeds of Affinity that can help lead that way and help inform all that needed policy in South Australia and then beyond.
Yeah, so that's what we spend a lot of our time doing, is going around and talking to anyone that will listen, really, and trying to decrease the stigma as well. I think stigma is another thing that I failed to mention beforehand, is the stigma that women face once they are released, and I think it's even worse for women than men. Mm-hmm. Women are, we're taught to that we have to live in this traditional role of being a woman and being a caregiver, and when we go to prison, it's not so easy for us to come out and just go back to laying bricks or,
Correct.
whatever, doing the plumbing. It's just not so easy for us. So for women, there's a whole another layer of issues that have to be looked at, have to be managed. And I think if the community can become more aware of that and more understanding, and the more I speak to people in the community about that issue, the more acceptance and understanding that I get. And I think that the only real rehabilitation comes from the community. It doesn't happen behind prison walls.
Mm. Yeah, Linda, it's so good to have you, because often what tends to happen is that a lot of women are really frightened of coming forward and being on air. And I've had situations where, ex-prisoners have come in and some of them have stayed in the show, and some of them have actually burst into tears and actually haven't been able to go through with things. And that's because a lot of women are frightened, of speaking out. And
for sure.
I actually...
You've got to remember as well,
That's right.
Prison and talking about prison experience is a very traumatic experience.
Yes.
So some women, haven't totally healed. I've had a long time to heal. I haven't been in prison since 1994, and I've always been quite a strong-minded character, and I refuse to be silent, if you like.
That's right. Claire actually attended... What was the conference you attended recently, Claire?
Well, we were both there.
Oh, you were both at the conference?
Reintegration Puzzle conference, yeah, absolutely. Oh. And I think what the beauty of it was too is that it was the real, I guess, one of the first. I mean, certainly there's, Sisters Inside conferences, is prison obsolete? I think this is probably one of the first university-convened conferences where we've actually had those with the lived experience as the keynote speakers and the lived experience as the theme throughout the whole conference, and probably the first step in joining then the academics and those that have been through the system and may become academics themselves now, but it's the straight and the non-straight getting together and breaking down, hopefully, the start of that stigma and getting it happening at that grassroots level and across into media.
And that's why I invited you both on, because it's important for women to speak to women, and of course I'm not saying that men aren't important, but I suppose I'm saying that women in prison do have special problems, and there's fewer services, isn't there, for women?
Certainly is.
I think one of the most powerful sessions was the one that I chaired with you in it, Linda. It was Seeds of Affinity, and then Heather Anderson speaking about Radio Seeds, and then Kat Anderson talking about the Justice Women's Network. And then there was also Bianca from the Women's Justice Network New South Wales that had a keynote address as well. So it was very powerful messages.
And both of you were speakers on that panel?
We were in different sessions, yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. And so Linda, as a speaker, how did you feel speaking at that conference?
Oh, it was great. I do a lot of public speaking now. I tend to speak all over the place. So it was a really great opportunity, and I was really pleased to be able to take some of the women from Seeds of Affinity along with me, which gave them the opportunity, if they felt like it, to get up. I don't put any pressure on them. If they feel they want to say something, they get up and they say something. And that's the beauty of it, is that women get exposed to things that they would never normally be exposed to. And after they do finish speaking, and after you do finish speaking to whoever you speak to, what you find is people are really, really understanding and really, really receptive and really accepting. And that's where I find it really interesting, this disconnect, because I speak to politicians as well.
Okay.
what I find is there seems to be this disconnect about what politicians seem to think the community wants and what the community actually wants. So politicians have this big fear of being seen to be soft on law and order and soft on prisons, and because it's a real vote getter, that's what they think. But what I tend to find in the community is what people want is to know that if someone does the wrong thing, they're not going to do it again.
Exactly.
It's really all they want, and they want to know that any intervention is a positive intervention.
Yeah,
it's not a warehousing of people, which is what we're undertaking at the moment.
That's exactly right, and some of the problems inside. Linda, you mentioned children. Like, how old were your sons when they had to leave you in prison?
The last one in 1994 was 6 months old.
That's horrific.
And I had to fight very, very strongly to keep him at all. It's not an easy thing to accomplish in South Australia. In 1987, Matthew was, I think, 3 weeks old. So it's a very, very difficult time, and it's something that I think in 1994 was the breaking point for me, where I said to myself, "Wow, this system's not going to do it for me. I've got to do it for myself," and I had to find a way out of the criminal justice system.
And you did, and you're here.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So, and I've got my family back together and brought up 4 sons successfully, and 4 great men that are doing really, really well.
That is wonderful, Linda. And we've also had Claire here quite a few times on this show speaking about her report. And I'm just wondering, Claire, what from that report, and I haven't got it in front of me, I'm afraid, but from memory, there's a section about women in prison in there?
Well, my Churchill Fellowship research was to study the rehabilitative role of ex-prisoners offenders as peer mentors in reintegration models. That was it. But I came back with so much more, where across the UK, in America, Sweden, Republic of Ireland, you've got so many people that have been through the system themselves, just like Linda, and then have decided, no, hang on a minute, there's more that I can do to help change the system and help those that are struggling in the system, so then start their own organisations, help inform the policy, but even then go on to employ people that have been through the system as well.
Fantastic.
And so that covered male and female and young people. Yeah,
that's great. No, I thought I'd ask that because it's connected. Because Linda, you have started an organisation here in Australia.
Yes, we started Seeds of Affinity in 2006. And basically, Seeds was born out of a gap because of the gaps in the systems that were provided for women for support once they leave prison and while they're in prison as well, really.
So if any women, or is it just for women, or can men join?
Yes.
Men can't join. That's cool.
Men, I'll be quite frank here.
That's okay. Men
are important too, but men in South Australia anyway get the lion's share of the resources.
Yes.
So they've got bigger numbers. They get most of the support services. So Seeds was established because of the fact that most services catered for men. And most prisons are designed for men, to be honest with you. Women are an afterthought.
Mm. Yeah, that's very true. Like, I used to work at Dame Phyllis Frost as a legal advocate long time ago now. And I found that for example, stuff about reproductive health, education and information about that. I used to have women coming in that had miscarriages that were severely traumatised. And, there just wasn't, all they did was they were given pills. How is that actually going to help a woman who's had a miscarriage to get over that trauma?
No, well, it's not. It's just going to keep it quiet for the time she's in there so nobody has to do any work.
Exactly. So, it's approximately 4:19, and this is the Doing Time show at 3CR Melbourne, and you're listening to an interview and discussion with Claire and Linda.
And I think what was wonderful too is because with Linda, Radio Seeds did a broadcast of the conference, didn't they? And then also then broadcast across Radio Seeds different interviews of people throughout the conference.
Can you give them is there a website for that so people can tune in?
You can go to our Radio Seeds Facebook page, and if you like it, then you can subscribe to get the podcast to that.
Great. Yeah. So what sort of interviews was on that? Was it the whole conference?
No, not the whole conference. The women went around with little recorders and did little vox pops and did little interviews with people. We've got part 2 to run, which will run next month. So we've only done one part so far,
sure.
But we'll run the next one next month. And just interviewing people on what, why they come to the conference, what they hope to get out of the conference, what their thinking is about the conference. We did a great interview with Keenan Mundine, who's a great Aboriginal young, really strong, really confident.
Oh, you're breaking out there, Linda.
He's done, grew up on the block in Redfern, which I have intimate knowledge of.
Good.
So I did an interview with him, and he was fantastic. So we gave his business a plug, and we were just trying to get things out there, for people, and hopefully for the women in prison as well. In South Australia, we're hoping to provide them with knowledge and education, so information that will help them and assist them.
Yeah, so they get to hear Radio Seeds program?
Well, they can't actually get to hear it because radios, funnily enough, aren't really easily for them to get for some strange reason. Uh-huh. But what we've been doing is Heather and Charlotte, who are Charlotte's from Adelaide University and Heather's from UniSA, who are the ladies that have come and shared their knowledge with us so that we could start Radio Seeds. And myself, we go up to the Adelaide Women's Prison and we do listening groups where we play them the shows and then we ask the women for feedback. So we're always asking the women to direct and tell us what it is that they want. Because I'm the woman in prison in 2017. I don't know what it's like to be in prison now. So they need to tell us and they need to tell us what it is they need to hear and what they want to hear.
And that's always really, really important. And this show, the Doing Time show, has been running for many years now. And you get your different collectives. You get shows where times when people run the show through prisoners, and sometimes that can't happen. But we always try to represent the lived experience, and not just with prisoners, but also we look at Aboriginal deaths in custody as well, and the asylum seekers and refugees. But Heather has been on this show, apparently. I wasn't here when it happened, but, she and Pete, who's the co-host of this show, were discussing perhaps getting all the radio the radio stations together, the radio shows together over in Australia. So perhaps we can work on that sometime.
Yeah, sounds fantastic.
So we're nearing the end of the interview because we've got 2 other interviews coming up. But Linda, for people listening, for any women listening, whether it be on the internet, whether it be that there's women in prison listening, how can they get in touch with Seeds of Affinity if they need to?
Okay, so we have a website, so you can go to seedsofaffinity.org.au. or you can call us on 0882427210, or you can write to us at 146 Semaphore Road, Exeter, 5019. And I promise that you will get a reply. And we're always available. And any woman that's in prison now, I'd like her to know that there is a community of women out here that have transitioned the journey and done the journey, and they're here and ready to support you.
Linda, thank you so much for coming onto the program. Claire and Linda, are there any final comments that you two want to make before we finish?
Look, I think, it's just brilliant what the work of Linda and what Seeds of Affinity are doing. It's just wonderful for me to have gone and searched this research overseas because there's hardly any of it happening in action in Australia, and knowing though that there's Seeds of Affinity that started in South Australia, and as long as we can get more of it happening everywhere. But I think the beauty of what the conference did was it's really set set the theme that we can't go back. And in the words of Keenan Mundine, he says, "Don't talk about us without us." And I think for any conference in the future to have credibility, they can't not do that.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, and we have that saying too. Nothing about us. Deb Kilroy always says, "Nothing about us without us." And the theme behind that is we do not consider ourselves the problem. We consider the state of the community and the state of the social services is the problem, and we understand how to address the problem because we're closest to the problem, so we're closest to the solution as well.
Yep.
Absolutely, and this show has prided itself on providing a safe environment for people to come in and state their views.
Yeah, that's great. It's really important to have that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Claire and Linda, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And our show is podcasted. Sorry, what were we going to say, Linda?
Nice to talk to you, Claire.
You too, Linda.
All right. Take care of yourself.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Good on you, Linda.
See you later.
Okay, bye-bye. And that was Linda Fisk, who is the founder of Seeds of Affinity. Yeah, and she's a broadcaster as well. And it's approximately 4:26. And Claire, thanks so much for joining us as well. And
thanks for having me.
And it's good. It was good for you to be here because you'd met Linda, and it's always good because the two of you went to the same conference and you supported each other, and that's why I invited you both so you could have that discussion.
Terrific.
So I'll now go into a song by Kutcha Edwards, and it's called Side by Side. And you're back with the Doing Time show, and next up on the show we've got John, who is the president of Community Justice Coalition. Hello, John. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's lovely to have you. Now, before we actually get onto the interview, I just wanted to introduce Claire Seppings, who is a special guest on our show today, and she's joined us also to make any comments that she needs to make.
Hello.
Hello, Claire.
Hello.
Now, John, very interesting. I was speaking to Brett Collins about half an hour ago from Justice Action, and he filled me out in a little bit about what's been going on here. Now, I believe that the government has refused online counselling for prisoners. Is that right?
Well, none of the governments around Australia have taken up the opportunity of online counselling. It's possible to control online counselling. It means that the prison authorities aren't involved in it, but we're concerned that for prisoners generally, and particularly prisoners with domestic violence incarceration, that they be given as much assistance as possible to prepare them for going back into the community, because it's an enormous adjustment to go back to, in most cases, wives who have had to adjust to them being away, have had to live with whatever caused the domestic violence, and we want to prepare them for going back into society and to reduce the chance of further events happening.
Absolutely. And in fact, access to counselling programs is so important to prison rehab, isn't it? And apparently the New South Wales Auditor General found that 75% of prisoners are unable to gain entry. Is that right?
That's right. It takes a while before the system allows longer-term prisoners to do it. Most domestic violence orders are for short terms, and they're, in terms of New South Wales, they're not in long enough to become eligible for any sort of assistance and programs, whereas we believe that this can be done at a very early stage, particularly for those very short-term people who still have to adjust to getting out into the community, having had the humiliation and problems of incarceration.
Do you have any comments, Claire, that you wanted to make?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were saying then too, I mean, it's any sort of support needs to start from day one, and it's got to be around the person of what the person actually needs. I think that's part of the problem is with the short sentences, especially those that are on remand and then, discharged from court. They've still got the issues that led to the offending or led to them being arrested and led them to being in prison in the first place. So I think it doesn't make sense to, hold off, really determining what that individual needs from day one.
So can you tell us a little bit about the work that your organisation is doing to assist with this?
Well, I'm about to go down to Canberra at the end of this month to have a look at the Alexander McConaughey Correctional Service Centre in Canberra. They've had computers of a limited form or a controlled form for some 9 years and had no problems with those computers. Now, we want computers in all cells where the person is appropriate. It's part of life, particularly young people's lives, and most prisoners are young. We want people to use them to gain educational things, skills, use of computers, communication on appropriate terms, controlled communication with specific family members, but above all, in this particular case, to develop counselling techniques so that people can talk their way through the problems that cause the domestic violence. And if we can reduce a significant number of those, then we've saved the community an enormous cost, but above all, the cost to families and children and so on.
And you've indicated, John, that research has proven that the online services can be just as effective and sometimes more effective than face-to-face counselling.
Yes, that's what, in various examples overseas, that has been shown to be the case. But, recidivism, that is, recurrence of crime, is in New South Wales something like 50%, 1 in 2. If we can reduce that recidivism by any means, either education or counselling or whatever, the saving in police time, court time, and so on is astronomical. And we allow people to have a bit more self-esteem, which is one of the bases upon which insecurity is found and causes violence.
Absolutely. We've got about 3 minutes left before we actually go into our next interview. But, John, is it okay if we have you back at some stage to have more of an extensive discussion, perhaps after you've been to Canberra, to talk more about this issue?
Of course.
Because
go on.
To
help the work you do on your station.
Thank you. Yeah, because it irks me that, you've got... It's wonderful that, you're getting support for victims or survivors, I should say. I can't stand that word, victim. Mm-hmm. But, it really irks me that perpetrators are not assisted. And you have all these intervention orders that are in place. The intervention orders are breached and nothing comes out of it.
Mm-hmm. I must say, when I used to do bail as a Supreme Court judge, on 3 occasions I had to refuse people bail because the victim / whatever calls them up and tries to do a reconciliation, and I can tell in each case they were going to call them up again, and then there'd be violence, and then they'd be in for breaching their AVO.
Thank you.
Okay.
You know, yeah. We could write a book about it, couldn't we, John and Claire?
Actually, one of my recommendations in my Churchill Fellowship report is about our need to introduce digital education or digitise services into the system. They have definitely started that. Or when I was in the Republic of Ireland, they'd start to introduce digital education. It makes sense. You can't not have any programs or let people, return to the community without being equipped in any way like that.
Absolutely. John, thank you so much for coming onto the program.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
And good luck with what's going to be happening over there in Canberra, and hopefully we can have you back very soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
And that was John Dowd, President of Community Justice Coalition, and I believe he's also a QC as well. It's approximately 4:40, and in a minute we're going to go into a very quick announcement. And thank you so much, Claire, for talking about your report, because I think it's all connected, isn't it?
Oh, pleasure. And I think it's, part of the whole mission is everything that we bring back from overseas that we're not doing here, that is a real gap here. We just need to keep talking about it, advocating it, just
absolutely
promoting it. Yep.
You got to remember, NAIDOC's a special day for us, brothers. That's a reminder who we are.
Every year for NAIDOC Week, 3CR Community Radio gives voice to our Indigenous brothers and sisters through Beyond the Bars, Australia's only live prison broadcast. I am a black man.
NAIDOC means a lot to me. It's about identity and also about past and present.
NAIDOC means a lot to me, for my family and my people.
And the people forgetting about our rights. You can access audio from current and past Beyond the Bars broadcasts via the 3CR website. Go to 3cr.org.au/Beyond the Bars and either listen to or download audio from Australia's only live prison broadcasts.
Happy NAIDOC!
This is Irene Bolger, former Secretary of the Nurses Federation in Victoria. Throughout the nurses' dispute in 1986 and the waterfront dispute in 1998, 3CR was always there, broadcasting the voices of workers in struggle.
You're listening to 3CR Community Radio, and we're broadcasting live from the Beta Chicken Strike here in Melbourne.
We've just seen all of the thousands of nurses walk through to their meeting and people from different unions showing their solidarity.
3CR, radio for the workers, by the workers, since 1976.
What we're dealing with here is a total lack of respect for the law.
Tune in to Done by Law.
An informal and irreverent look at the law. Critical insights and analysis from diverse community perspectives.
Done by Law, 6 p.m. Tuesdays.
And you're back with the Doing Time show. And joining us now is Lucy Honan from the Refugee Action Collective. And she's been on our show quite a few times now. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Marissa. How are you going?
Lovely to have you. Good, thanks. Now, we've got about 15 minutes left, or a bit less. And joining us in the studio, we've also got Claire Seppings, who's written a report about the lived experience of prison. And she may want to contribute as the need arises. Yeah.
Hi, Lucy.
Hi.
So, Lucy, can you talk about this event that's coming up this Monday at Trades Hall? I did introduce it at the beginning, and apparently it's about offshore processing. Can you talk about that?
So next Monday we're having a forum called How Can We Break the Bipartisan Support for Offshore Processing? And it's hosted by the Refugee Action Collective, but we've got speakers including Jed Carney, who's the president of the ACTU, Michelle O'Neill, who's State Secretary of the Textile and Clothing and Footwear Union, and she's from Labour for Refugees. Aaron Mulvalganam, who's a Tamil refugee and a financial sector union organiser, and myself from RAC and Teachers for Refugees. And the theme of the forum is, as you say, about how to break offshore detention, how do we ensure that we close Manus and Nauru and bring the refugees here to Australia. But it's looking in particular about the Labor Party and how we can break the Labor Party away from its support for offshore detention. So that's the kind of question is, you know, the bipartisan support, which has been the case for decades. But at various points in time, for example, during the 2007 election, we saw a break in the bipartisan support and Labor shifting its policy and the closure for a short amount of time of the offshore detention centres. So we're trying to raise that question again, that there are so many Labor supporters, Labor voters, Labor members who oppose offshore detention. How can we get that reflected in the Labor policy and see an end to Labor's support for it?
You know, that's a really, really interesting event, and I'm going to see if if we can go down and record that, because I think that would, if we can. And before we actually get into the nuts and bolts of the situation, I just wanted to advertise it and to say that it's going to be, as Lucy said, on Monday, the 24th of July at 6:30pm to 8:30pm, and it's at Trades Hall, 54 Victoria Street, Melbourne, Victoria, 3053. So tell us about the Labor Party then, Lucy. Like, it's so confusing, like because, you know, on the one hand, you know, the Labor Party was quite strong at one stage and still is. There's still a little bit of breath left in it, I think. You know, at least they're supporting the unions in some ways. I mean, the Liberal Party feels very threatened by Labor and keeps saying that they're union, that, you know, that they love the unions. But let's talk about it a bit more. What are your thoughts on the whole thing, and why was the event born?
Well, it's a key strategic question for the Refugee Action Collective and the refugee movement in general. The Labor Party, it is a conundrum because on the one hand, it's the inventor of mandatory detention. It's the resurrector of offshore detention and mandatory detention even after it kills it off itself. You know, it was Kevin Rudd who reopened Manus Island. It was Julia Gillard who started the visa freezes, you know, and re-amplified the whole refugee deterrence program and the race to the bottom that we're seeing now. So the Labor Party is not only complicit, it has participated in such a proactive way in the viciousness of offshore detention. The flip side of that is, though, that unlike the Liberal Party, they can be shifted. And there is a difference between what the leadership of the party is doing and has done and what the base of the Labor Party expects and, you know, in some instances demands of its own leadership. So, for example, 68% of Labor voters now support bringing the refugees on Manus and Nauru to Australia, which is, it's huge. You know, 68% of its own membership, this policy is rotten to them. If we can, and if the refugee movement makes a decisive kind of orientation to that group of people and encourages that group of people to push and demand of the Labor Party leadership a change in policy, then I think that's our likely what's it called, like a lever to push in this situation. And we've got the reason that we've got somebody from Labor for Refugees, so that's a rank and file group of people within the Labor Party who are already taking action around this issue.
So there will be some Labor representatives speaking at the event?
Right. Michelle O'Neill's in the Labor Party. Jed Carney and Aaron are not, you know, speaking on behalf of the Labor Party, but the links between the union movement and the Labor Party, as you referred to before, they're obvious links. whether or not unions are affiliated to the Labor Party recognises that its roots are in the union movement in some way, shape or form. So if we can get union members active about this issue as well, not only can it put pressure on the Labor Party, it can also just through union members' actions themselves, like we saw at the Lady Salento Hospital, like the Teachers for Refugees actions, they can put more direct pressure on the politicians, whether they're Labor or Liberal. So that's, I guess it's a question of strategy. It's a question of, how can we use that base of people, progressive people, and bring them into the campaign and get them active around this question of closing the camps.
Absolutely, and in fact, one of the things that's quite controversial, actually, back at that time when the Gillard government was in, what a lot of people don't know, because I don't know if a lot of people actually listen to watch Parliament during the day. It's quite entertaining, and it's very informative. And one of the things that I experienced, because as a radio broadcaster, I like to, in particular, keep abreast with what the mainstream media is saying about refugees and asylum seekers. And one of the things that came out for me is that back at that time, the Greens and the Gillard government were trying to work on having onshore processing, and then because Labor didn't have enough seats, there was like a hung parliament, and so in the end, the Gillard government, it was kind of trapped into actually having the Malaysia deal and having all of those other the offshore processing. So, study it, Lucy, study it.
I don't know. I mean, I think the Malaysia solution is an example of the Labor Party at that time.
I'm not suggesting that it didn't happen, but I'm just saying it was a hung parliament.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think it hung in lots of different senses. I mean, I think it was hung, like literally the numbers. But I think the Labor Party is generally hung on the question on this question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interminably, because it's incapability of putting forward an alternative to refugee deterrence and to refugee brutality means that every time the Liberal Party or the Murdoch media or anybody like that kind of says, oh no, the boats are coming, unless the Labor Party can keep its head, show some leadership and say, you know what, the boats are coming, but that's not a problem. We're going to welcome the boats. We can do this. As long as it's incapable of doing that, then it will start reaching for, it didn't start off with offshore processing. It started off with, the Indonesia solution, or going over to Indonesia and trying to persuade the boats not to come there. And then it started with the, extending mandatory detention, and then on, and it was pushed back into the race to the bottom, and the horrible situation on Manus and Nauru at the moment. So I think it's that it's hung between its roots and its progressive, erstwhile progressive values, and this kind of sense that it needs to maintain the system and keep in control and, maintain the borders and nationalism and all of that sort of thing. And while our side and its membership and its roots are quiet on the question, then it just goes hell for leather in the other direction.
Absolutely. So to throw out this question that's actually in the communique here, the release, how can we widen the cracks within the Labor Party over refugees and break the partisan refugee cruelty? How can that happen?
I think a large part of it is to do with the unions and the membership. So, the Labor leadership, while there's no pressure on them, they're not going to do anything except sing from the same song sheet as the other side. Mm-hmm. But the rank and file is where we can see some movement. And, like I was mentioning before, the Lady Salento, Teachers for Refugees, workplace actions of people who, they look to the Labor Party, or they have some relationship to unions, which have relationships to Labor. That sort of action can put some pressure. I think the other thing is just that generally, it would be good to see some more of the parliamentarians and Labor Party spokespeople speak out on this issue. And when they do speak out, the refugee movement needs to make a big deal about it, and point to the fact, when, for example, there was Anna Burke, who was still an MP at the time. The fact that she was willing to stay within the party and criticise it was very powerful. It showed that, there wasn't this seamless agreement about the whole issue. And I think we need to start seeing a few more MPs, Labor MPs, voice what we know is personal and behind closed doors concern about the issue. They need to come out. They need to be encouraged to come out. They need to be welcomed in coming out and criticising it. And the refugee movement, I think, can do a lot to bring that about. Whether it's one-on-one conversations or as I was saying before, just making it an expectation that we have on those MPs.
It's true, Lucy. I mean, while, as Joe Toscano always says on his show, Anarchist World this week, he says that a lot of politics is embedded in the boardrooms of the multinationals, and and it is true. But at the same time, we also have to try and live in the system, and sometimes votes count, don't they?
Votes count, but also people power counts, and
absolutely.
I think the other side to having the break in the bipartisan support, while it would be great to see some political shift on the parliamentary level. Every time there is a Labor politician that speaks out, that gives confidence to kind of has the reverberating impact. It gives rank and file people, ordinary working class people, the confidence to say, you know what, I feel disgusting about what's going on and I'm going to do something about it. If they're speaking out about it, I can speak out about it too. So I think there is in the refugee movement, there's a very deep bitterness about the Labor Party's complicit role, and that's absolutely justified because they have been reprehensible. But at the same time, we need to work really hard to make sure that Labor Party people are welcome when they do speak out, and
that's
they are
right.
encouraged to do it. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Claire, do you have any? What do you think?
I just think it's brilliant. And it sounds very exciting. If you've got Jed Carney speaking there, I think, I just have a sense that you're really going to be building a movement.
Absolutely. We have about a minute left. Can you just give us the details again, Lucy?
Yeah, it's 6:30 next Monday at the Trades Hall. And speakers will include Jed Carney, Michelle O'Neill, myself, and Aaron Melvalganum.
Lucy, thank you so much for coming onto the program. I mean, you and I have spoken quite a lot about the Labor Party, haven't we? I mean,
yeah.
and I think it can be shifted, and the reason why I think so, very quickly, is because I visit asylum seekers at META, at the Broadmeadows Centre, and a lot of the guys and men and women often say to me that since the Liberal government has come through, that they haven't had access to lawyers anymore. And they used to say that when Labor was in, because a lot of them have been there for years, that they had more lawyers, that they were allowed to have more lawyers in there. And I find that interesting.
Yeah, there are. I mean, there are actually a few differences. Temporary protection visas is still one of them as well. Labor is committed to repealing that, which is good, and they didn't vote for the permanent lifetime ban on refugees,
which is good.
An important crack. So it does show that they can be shifted.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about Pauline Hanson another time, huh?
Not her.
All right, Lucy. Well, take care of yourself, and we'll probably see you next Monday.
Great. See you then.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. And that was Lucy Honan from the Refugee Action Collective. Thank you to all our guests for coming in. And, thanks, Claire, for coming in as well. And we better get organised now and finish off. Black Fella, White Fella is coming on, our theme song, Rumpy Band. And Beyond Zero is up next. So it's goodbye from Marissa and Claire. And a cheerio to Peter. And thanks for Rob for producing. Bye. See you every Monday from 4 to 5 for the Doing Time.